Sunshine Network proudly presents the 1989 Police Athletic League Amateur Boxing Championships. Well, hi again, everybody. I'm Dave Reed. Number of different weight categories. Of course, the Police Athletic League has been sponsoring this tournament for many years. It's been in Florida for the past 3 in Barry Milligan. We're going to see tonight some of the finest young fighters in the country.
That's right, and some you may see in future years, especially in 1992. This is a real proving ground for amateur fighters in the United States. We may see a lot of these youngsters wind up in Barcelona fighting for the United States in the next Olympic Games. Clyde Dunn has done a terrific job at the National PAL headquarters up in Cleveland, as well as the Bashore Sports Foundation here on the Gold Coast, done an equally great job of staging the event.
Now tonight you're going to see a lot of different classifications in what is known as the open division. And the open division is kind of the most talented young fighters that the PAL have.
Indeed, one of 3 divisions, and you're right, they are the most talented. The fighters qualify in ages 16 to 35. They feel as an amateur fighter by the time you reach 35 years old, if you haven't either turned pro or made it to the Olympics, which is about the pinnacle of amateur fighting, that'll be about it. But still, the finest amateur boxers, not only in this area, but from around the country.
All right, so it should be a lot of fun. Amateur boxing, PAL style. Back to the Palm Hotel with our opening bout in just a moment.
Joe Ingram out of Laurinburg, North Carolina. Antonio English out of River Rouge, Michigan. And it will be Antonio English in the black trunks. He fighting out of the blue corner, and Rodrigo Ingram in the red corner, fighting in solid red. This should be an interesting fight, the 112-pound class. Ingram, 17 years old. He's been fighting for the last 7 years. Antonio English, they call him Tonio. Also 17 years old and fighting for nearly as long. He's been fighting since the age of 14.
We see, obviously, Antonio English, the taller of the two, in the black trunks.
He's going to have a sizable reach advantage, but it doesn't seem to bother Ingram, who puts the head right in there.
Fighting out of River Rouge, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit, and Rodrigo Ingram with the big left hand rocks Tonio English here early in round 1.
Well, English never saw that one coming, and here's your standing 8 count. This is required under amateur rules. Anytime a major punch is hit, they'll stop, count to 8, make sure the fighter is uninjured. Antonio comes back with a vengeance and lands a good, solid left jab.
Well, he took it off well. Tonio English in outstanding condition. That may be one of his best attributes, in addition to a good left jab, although Rodrigo Ingram has landed a couple more left hooks and is really fighting very strongly here in the first round.
He's doing a nice job of getting in and out, moving with a lot of different punches. That time he led with a left hook, left uppercut that got in on Antonio English.
Well, he likes that left hook, does Ingram, and he'll use it a lot. He scored well with it here in the first round.
Well, Ingram, best friend of Sylvester Moody, who also participated in this competition. He and Moody essentially started out together, and those two spar against each other up in Laurinburg, Scotland High School.
Ingram himself, a USA ABF Junior Olympic National Champion, trying to add Police Athletic League National Championships to his impressive list of credentials.
And he is scoring at will right now. Barry got 2 left hooks and then followed it up with a right jab. The height advantage from Tonio English is not bothering one of Rodrigo Ingram.
No, not a bit. You see, one big difference that you've seen here in round 1 has been the obvious difference in power between the two. Ingram, the stockier of the two, but obviously the more powerful of the two. Tonio English, they haven't really gotten him on the weight program just as yet. And Ingram once again landing the left.
And Ingram doing a good job of slipping a lot of punches, warned by referee Jim McDowell, the 3rd man in the ring, to keep the punches up. These fights, of course, sanctioned under the jurisdiction of the USA ABF, the Amateur Boxing Federation rules. And again, another good left hand by Ingram. Tonio English follows with a left of his own.
Yep, a great exchange right there. And now English going to the jab, and Ingram leading with the right hand, which scored.
And you like Ingram works. I mean, look at all the punches he's throwing.
And landing the uppercut as well. Very impressive opening round from Rodrigo Ingram. You like to see a young fighter who has that kind of savvy, able to score from a lot of different angles.
He's doing that right now. Now, English is not backing off, but Ingram doing a nice job of picking the spots as round 1 comes to an end.
outstanding first round in the 112-pound weight classification. Rodrigo Ingram trying to defend his PAL national championship, as you see Tonio English and his coach Keith Jackson.
As we told you, this is the finals of the PAL competition, and these guys fought in preliminary rounds to get here. Rodrigo Ingram last night defeated Lee Gladden out of Pleasantville, New Jersey, stopped him in the second round in order to advance. Tonio English, as we told you, his coach Keith Jackson has his own gym. He used to work out with the pros and works just with amateurs right now. Let's check in on Rodrigo Ingram. Okay, let's go. Round two gets set to get underway. And so we begin round two. Rodrigo Ingram and Tonio English. English out of River Rouge, Detroit, Barry, an area known to spawn tough kids.
Tough kids indeed. Keith Jackson, the coach of the kids from River Rouge, has his own gym up there. Used to work with the professionals, but deals strictly with the amateurs now. Keith trying to give a lot of these kids a good outlet to keep them off the streets, and that's one reason that Tonio English started fighting, to get him off the streets.
English, obviously a boxer, likes Tommy Hearns. Of course, from Tommy Hearns from Detroit himself. And English doing a little bit better job in this round of throwing that left jab out there and keeping Ingram off of it.
Exactly right. Ingram now doubling up on his punches, scoring once again, leading with the right hand, scoring again. One thing that we mentioned was impressive from Rodrigo Ingram in round one. He scored from a lot of different angles with the left hook, through the uppercut, through the straight right hand, and all were effective.
Ingram, the PAL national champ last year in the 112-pound division. Pat Nappy on hand with us tonight. Pat, of course, the Olympic coach for our country for the last 3 Olympics. Did not coach in '88, of course, but he is here looking at these young fighters and trying to decide if indeed they are worthy of going to Olympic training camps and the National Sports Festival.
That's right, looking very hard as Rodrigo Ingram draws the warning to keep that head up. We send, or the United States that is, sends these young fighters all over the world, and a lot of them have been to such places as Scandinavia. Some will be going over to London, England, some to fight the Russians over in this country up in Atlanta, Georgia in the next couple of months. And Colorado Springs up at the training camp will be the site for these young men to prove themselves more and more as their careers progress. The nose now bloodied of Tonio English.
English doing a little bit better job in this round, though. He landed a nice right to begin that exchange. So certainly round one had to go to Ingram, but Tonio English coming back a little bit better, although Ingram rocks him with a left there.
Well, Ingram, just a very tough kid. Looks like a mini Foreman, or a mini Frazier, rather. The way he just bores at you, comes straight ahead. No backing up. Look at him, takes that right hand from English, but he still comes straight ahead.
And again, lands the left to the head of Tonio English.
And Tonio English still wiping at the nose, probably having a little bit of problem breathing now, perhaps, if that nose indeed bloodied as it appears.
And that's the end of round two. Well, I think easily you have to give the first round to Ingram, and probably the second as well, Bear.
Yeah, that's the way I'm going to score it, although Tonio English really woke up in round two, fighting much better. I think the coaching from Keith Jackson really paid off. He started in the opening minute with a good left jab, but that young man right there, Rodrigo Ingram, really coming through with a lot of toughness and a lot of aggressiveness over the last minute and a half or so, and I felt was enough to take that second round. There you see Tonio English doubling up on his punches, but they do nothing to stop the frontal assault of Rodrigo Ingram, who scores a couple of times in that exchange and landed some heavy shots again in round two.
Well, English having a real problem keeping Ingram off of him, and he's going to have to, at least in this round, probably knock out about the only way he's going to win this one, as Ingram has a sizable advantage here through the first 2 rounds.
One more, let's get it. Stop.
And so we begin round 3. Ingram and English, the 112-pound division. Ingram out of Laurinburg, North Carolina. English out of River Rouge, Michigan.
You know, Dave, you mentioned that Tony English, the taller and the slimmer of these two young men, likes Tommy Hearns. On the other hand, Rodrigo Ingram likes Sugar Ray Leonard. Something of an interesting analogy between those two, because in smaller versions, they look like those two fighters in different forms.
They really do, don't they?
Oh, Rodrigo Ingram coming out tough here once again. Antonio English backed up on the ropes, really scoring.
Under the ratio of about 2-1 on that exchange. English needs to be throwing that jab more. And when he does, Ingram does a nice job of just ducking right out in front of him, gets a nice right uppercut into that exchange. Many of these fighters, of course, will go on to Golden Gloves competition, varying other amateur competitions. And as we told you, the goal is to get to the Olympic training camp. Few of these fighters at this point are thinking about turning pro. More are interested in going to the Goodwill Games or, of course, the Olympics.
Once again, we see a little bit of the blood from the nose, and you can see it on the left glove. Remember, the white on the gloves are the contact points. That's where you score in amateur boxing, and you see on the left glove of Rodrigo Ingram the blood from the nose, where he has obviously scored repeatedly.
And continues to do so.
With a good left coming out of the break, too. Yeah, the referee's going to take a break here. There you see, wipe the blood off the nose of Antonio English.
Referee Jim McNally wisely says, let's take care of the problem here. And we resume action in round 3, and again, Ingram lands a nice left hook.
Well, we told you that's his bread and butter punch. He does a lot of things to set that up. Antonio English now coming back with a good left right of his own. The balance of Ingram, very good. Nice strong legs for a 112-pounder. Gets himself set in there and really uses that good balance to favor his aggressive style.
No question, Antonio English is going to have to spend some time in the weight room. That another left hook rocks him, and there comes the blood out of the nose again. Nice overhand left. Wasn't exactly a left hook, really landed.
This Rodrigo Ingram, Laurinburg, North Carolina, a young man we may be hearing a lot more of in the coming years in amateur boxing.
A couple of wild lefts by both fighters. Good right by English, good left on the counter punch by Ingram. These amateur fighters will learn to protect themselves a little bit better as they move on to bigger and better things. All right, well, that's the end of round 3. Back with the official decision in a moment. Sunshine Network, your network for sports, bringing you the Police Athletic League Boxing Championships from West Palm. Back in a moment. The slow start at round 1, but comes with a nice overhead right here that scores right on Ingram. But again, that big left hook by Ingram, and that was kind of indicative of how this fight went throughout. All right, let's go up to our ring announcer, Mike Anthony, for the decision.
The winner of tonight's second bout at 112 pounds from the red corner, Rodrigo Ingram. Presenting Rodrigo with his award, Mr. Steve Shepard, 5-time world kickboxing champion and owner of Steve Shepard's Institute of Boxing and Karate.
In the 112-pound class, your winner, Rodrigo Ingram out of Laurinburg, North Carolina. Let's go up to Barry Milligan. Bear?
Thanks, Dave. Rodrigo Ingram defending your national championship here. What was the strategy coming in?
Coming to his body and working my way up to the top.
It looked like what we learned about you beforehand certainly proved true. The left hook really scored well for you.
Yeah, I work hard on that, raising the elbow and turning a lot of leverage in.
A two-time national champion. What's next in the young career of Rodrigo Ingram?
Working towards the Goodwill Games.
All right. And we may see you indeed fighting international competition for the United States. We'll be back with more Rodrigo Ingram defending his national championship at 112 pounds. More from the PAL National Championships in just a moment.
class. Jeremy Strawcutter in the red corner out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He in the blue headgear. Don Talley out of River Rouge, Michigan. 16 years of age, over in the blue corner. Third man in the ring is Les Hebert. He out of Los Angeles, California. Sissy Studer, Gene Rees, Pat Franco, Betty Escoco, and Brian Tomanovich are your officials in this fight. Along with Barry Milligan, I'm Dave Reed. Delighted to have you with us for a fun night of PAL boxing, and this one's not going to lack for action. Strawcutter in the blue headgear, Don Talley in the white headgear. Strawcutter in the classy pro style with the name written across the trunks. Jeremy on one leg, Strawcutter on the other.
Strawcutter in great shape coming in. We told you he fights out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Actually, Jeremy from Puxatony, Pennsylvania. You know what Puxatony's famous for besides Jeremy Strawcutter? That's the home of Puxatony Phil, the groundhog that we look for every year.
I was going to ask you about that.
That's Puxatony Phil.
I knew that. I knew that.
We'll see now about Puxatony Jeremy.
Puxatony Jeremy's doing a pretty good job here, leading with that left. Been a lot of action here in this first round.
Well, another thing besides the conditioning of Strawcutter, he's also, his coach says, an excellent student of the game. You see, he looks a little bit stiff, but boy, what a crisp left jab he just landed to Don Talley.
Well, Talley did a nice job of coming back to the left himself. Talley going to the body and now coming across with the left. Talley, relatively new to boxing, has been fighting about 4 years. Had a lot of fights in that time.
His coach, Keith Jackson, says Talley may need just a little work on technique more than anything else. He's getting used to the hard work of being in a gym, but he has great hand speed, and Keith Jackson feels this young man's going to be a good boxer.
Talley lands a nice left, and Strawcutter comes back with a left of his own. Going to be a tough one to call here, this round one.
Strawcutter somewhat fortunate in the draw here. He got a walkover. Ooh, good right hand. Has Talley in the corner now. Strawcutter, I was mentioning, got a walkover in the first bout of this tournament. He was scheduled to fight Ricky Jones, who is ranked number 2 in the American Boxing Federation National Championship standings. Out of Augusta, Georgia, had a stomach virus and had to pull out of the competition. And Strawcutter, with another victory, finds himself here fighting for a national championship.
He's got his hands full right now against Don Talley. Strawcutter made the semis in the National Golden Gloves last year. So he's been here before. Nice short right by Strawcutter. The Strawcutters get the better of the exchange. It's been close as we come to the end of round one. A lot of action in that round, Barrett. Tough one to try and score. Strawcutter doing a little bit better job of forcing the action. But Talley right in there with it.
Yeah, absolutely right. I gave the first round to that young man right there, Jeremy Strawcutter, by a 10-9 score. His punches were a little crisper, definitely landing the heavier of the two. But still in all, as you said, at 119 pounds, these two young men, no lacking for action. Strawcutter dying to get off that stool and get back in here in round 2.
All right, well, Strawcutter with a nice job. Don Talley, of course, 16 years of age, 54 amateur fights to his credit. He's won 48 of them. You know, you look at these guys and you look at the championships and look at the records, and everybody's got stellar records. You got to wonder who'd they beat. We move to round 2, and we say that comment not because he beat people that weren't any good, but well, that's a lot of victories between these two fighters. It really is. And we're going to take a look at Don Talley here. And apparently there's a little bit of a cut right under, a little bit of a mouse right under the right eye. Apparently they'll say it's okay.
Don Talley defeating Steve White out of Riverdale, Georgia by decision in the semifinals. Strawcutter defeating one of the local fighters, if you will. Donald Gomez out of the North Miami Boxing Club.
Strockcutter gets a piece of a left to go through, and Talley comes back with a couple of, actually a nice 1-2 combination to the body. Does have pretty quick hands, does Don Talley.
That was one thing his coach Keith Jackson was telling us about earlier today. He had the great hand speed, just feeling that Don needed a little bit more work on the technique. But Strawcutter, a very tough kid, lands a good short left jab, or left hook rather, which scored cleanly. Strawcutter reached the semifinals of the National Golden Gloves last year and is the state champion of that Golden Gloves tournament in Pennsylvania.
Now, this entire tournament littered with state champs, regional champs, district champs. That's how they got here. Strawcutter lands 2 nice lefts.
You're right, Dave. A great tournament showcasing young amateur boxers from all over the country, and the PAL organizations from the different regions doing an outstanding job funding their own fighters, some traveling all the way across the country, paying all the expenses, giving their youngsters a chance to fight the best from other regions.
That's a point to be made, of course. This tournament by invitation, as we told you. But you got to have the bucks to get here, and it's up to each athletic association to get their fighters here, expense-wise. And now Talley finds himself on the ropes. Strawcutter lands a nice short left.
Strawcutter having a lot of success here with that left. Takes a good left from Talley.
One thing that most young fighters don't do as they're coming up is protect themselves very well, and as a result, you see a lot of punches landing. You'll see that throughout the evening.
Talley doing a nice job working the body coming up to the head. He has really good skills and good instincts.
Strawcutter very intent to just go to the head of Talley and try and score. Got to bear in mind that when you're coaching an amateur fighter, we'll talk about that in a moment as round 2 is history. About to say that when you're an amateur coach, bear in mind it's not necessarily the number of championships that you win, but the development of the fighter as a whole. You got a guy like Pat Nappy here who is looking to put these fighters in the Olympic trials. You got to have a lot of different skills. You got to be able to go to the body as well as the head.
And you see there, Talley, with the pretty good defense, scored the left hook, which seemed to just irritate Jeremy Strawcutter a little bit. Strawcutter throwing a lot of punches there, not landing with any of those 4, although I think Talley going to have his work definitely cut out for him here in round 3. I've given each of the first 2 rounds Jeremy Strawcutter's way, although the first especially very close and very tough to call.
Keith Jackson coaching his young fighters. We move to the 3rd and final round. And let's see if Don Talley is going to try and get off a little bit quicker against Jeremy Strawcutter.
And as you mentioned earlier, Dave, Talley trying to break that jinx of never having won a championship. He's been in the semifinals several times, reached a lot of finals, but he's never taken a championship. As his hands full here again with a very tough young kid from Pennsylvania in Jeremy Strawcutter.
Strawcutter getting the better of the infighting. Strawcutter now above us again. On the inner exchanges, it's Strawcutter all the way.
Well, you have to admire these youngsters, too. 16, 17, 18 years old, most of them, as in Strawcutter's case, training 2.5 hours a day, 6 days a week, in addition to being in school. And his coach was telling me that may be his finest attribute is his willingness to work. Trains very, very hard.
You look across this field of fighters, and you see a lot of A students. You see several of these young kids going to college. Some planning careers in finance and business. Of course, they're going to get that shot at the Olympics first. Or they hope so, at least. Stockcutter again, nice left jab, and follows it up to the right. And apparently, Tally, that little mouse right up below his eye hasn't gotten any larger. Stockcutter got to him just as this fight began.
Oh, another good left from Stockcutter. The left hook landing very well, drawing the warning to keep the head up. But Stockcutter, the aggressor here in round 3.
Tally's not going to get far trying to counterpunch with Stockcutter. Again, Stockcutter leading with the left. Tally trying to work the body a little bit. And both these fighters getting a little bit weary as this third round comes to a close.
Well, they fought very, very hard in the first 3 minutes. As I said, that will be a very difficult round to score. 5 judges here at ringside. They have their work cut out for them.
Well, this fight's over. Apparently, Jeremy Stockcutter has done himself well. We'll be back with the final decision. PAL Boxing, National Championship style on Sunshine Network. Will return to Palm Beach in a moment.
Jeremy Stockcutter. Presenting the awards to the boxers, the Honorable
And so
Pat
Jeremy
Kessler,
Stockcutter, the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania native, who got here the easy way by having to only fight once to get here, had a tough fight in Don Tally tonight, but managed to come out victorious. We'll go at it. PAL Boxing National Championships continue. Larry Nicholson out of Troop, Texas, and fighting out of the red corner. He's 22 years of age. And Tony Marshall out of Albany, New York. And you look at Tony there in the red, white, and blue trunks. Boy, you look, it's patriotic just looking at him, doesn't it? Round 1 begins. Nicholson been fighting since, well, about 4 years ago. And really has been fighting for the last 14 years off and on. And Tony Marshall, 17 years of age, has been boxing about the same amount of time, about the last 4 years. This should be a very entertaining fight. Tony Marshall, his dad was a boxer, and Tony an A student at Albany High School, and he's very lucky. He's looking at 2 athletic scholarships and an academic scholarship awaiting a nice left by Nicholson. And they're hoping that he will get the athletic scholarship, or rather the scholastic scholarship, so he can continue to box as an amateur and then later turn pro while in college. Obviously, if he goes on a scholastic scholarship or the athletic scholarship, he'll have to box for the school.
Larry Nicholson, Dave, one of the outstanding boxers in this entire competition. A PAL runner-up back in 1987 when the tournament was held up in Jacksonville. Won the championship a year ago at the 125-pound classification in Pompano Beach. Has moved up to 132 and says he feels a little bit stronger at this weight. Moved up 7 pounds to another weight classification. Facing a taller youngster in Tony Marshall, and also has to overcome a reach advantage, but he throws an excellent right-hand lead there.
Nicholson known as a counterpuncher. That's some pretty good speed, moves fairly well. And lefts and rights scoring at will by both fighters. Good right by Trufez.
Straight right hand from Nicholson. Nicholson coached by Lucky Baskoku.
EA Lucky.
That's right. Drove these youngsters over here. His Lucky's wife, Betty, one of the judges, one of only 3 women initially to ever judge amateur boxing events. A real family thing. They had a couple of sons who were boxers, and she got involved once their daughter was old enough to go to the gym.
Nicholson getting off first. Now here comes Tony Marshall back.
Nicholson uses that good speed once again to try and score from lots of different angles. Good hand speed, good movement of foot, able to duck a lot of punches and avoid being hit, as you saw right there. Able to avoid that good straight left jab.
Tony warned by Eddie Urbeck out of Massachusetts, the 3rd man in the ring, to watch the elbow. Nicholson lands with a nice overhead right. Nicholson makes himself small. I guess that's probably the only way to describe it. He crouches himself pretty well. He's a fairly tall guy, but he makes it a very difficult target to hit as round 1 comes to a close. Really haven't had the opportunity to talk at any length, really, about the Bashore Shoemaker Sports Foundation that's really founded to bring sports to the Palm Beach County area. There is a sports commission here in town, but Bashore Shoemaker tries to bring other sports to the county. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's listen in to Tony Marshall's corner. And apparently not a lot being said there, so we'll continue about the foundation. It's really the folks whose namesake found the foundation that run it. They don't get a lot of money from the county, and they've brought a lot of fine sports here to Palm Beach.
Oh, there you see the good overhand right that scored by Larry Nicholson. He landed several of those good right hands in round 1, a round in which I gave him.
And so we go to round 3. Larry Nicholson in the light blue trunks and Tony Marshall in the red, white, and blue.
We mentioned Tony Marshall having the height and reach advantage, but Nicholson, very accomplished as a young man, able to overcome a lot of obstacles, had to do so in the semifinals of this tournament. Fought a young man named Eddie Blue from the Laurinburg, North Carolina club. A very tough fight. Blue was a left-hander, which gave Nicholson a lot of problems, but as coach said, able to use the good skill and the good speed to come out with a decision in that one.
Nicholson the stalker, and Tony Marshall on his bike throughout this fight.
It's a week-long competition. A lot of these guys coming to the West Palm Beach area a week ago. In fact, to the day, the 132-pound classification, which you're seeing right now, one of the more hotly contested. This is the 4th fight in a week's time for these young men, so obviously stamina and conditioning a big factor.
A lot of kids in the class, and now you're getting to a weight classification where the more thunderous punchers start to arise. Larger weight classifications, Nicholson takes a shot to the body and shakes his head and says, "You didn't hurt me."
Well, thinking that one was a little low. And Tony Marshall doing a better job here. You see the red, white, and blue trunks. Better job at boxing Nicholson in this round. Throwing different punches, leading with the right hand, trying to mix things up a little bit to offset the power punches that were thrown by Nicholson in round 1.
Nicholson warned to keep him up. But you're right. Oh, good right. Real big right by Nicholson. Landed square on the jaw of Tony Marshall.
Look how Nicholson moves so well at the waist. It's the bobbing and another outstanding straight right hand. It's a weaving motion. You know, you hear the term bob and weave. He does that excellently.
Well, that's the point I was trying to make earlier in saying he's making himself small. Probably your adjectives are a little bit better, but he's a very tough guy to try and hit because he does move his head and his upper body so well.
And now the referee actually issuing a warning to Tony Marshall for the low blows, telling him once again to keep him up. Nicholson, we mentioned, from Fruit, Texas, coming halfway across the country here to the BAL National Championships, and that's something the young man loves to do, is travel, and something he may be doing a lot more of representing the United States possibly in some international competition.
Tony Marshall may have gotten away with a low blow there.
Well, another warning could possibly result in a point being deducted. That would be a very serious blow to the hopes of Tony Marshall.
No lack of action in this fight so far. Two well-matched boxers. Tony Marshall with a little bit of a reach advantage. Larry Nicholson, a little bit of more of a boring style. And I say boring in terms of getting inside. Pretty good matchup here.
Outstanding matchup so far.
Larry Nicholson, the ambition is to be a pro after the Olympics, of course. Mayor Barry mentioned the Region 8 American Boxing Federation or Amateur Boxing Federation champ at the 125 category, although he's put on some weight.
And there you see, oh, good countering right hand and a good left hook from Larry Nicholson. You saw how he was able to bob the head, duck the jab, and the counter punch landed squarely.
Third and final round. Along with Barry Milligan, I'm Dave Reed. The 132-pound classification, the National Police Athletic League Boxing Championships.
Dave, I have scored this fight each of the first two rounds for Larry Nicholson. By my unofficial count, Tony Marshall really going to have to pick things up here, and being prompted to do so by his coach.
And doing a much better job than Nicholson. The counterpuncher, as we told you that he was, does a good job of just that.
Lucky Baktoku telling us this young man, Larry Nicholson, was going to be an excellent fighter, predicting a national championship for him beforehand. You wouldn't expect his coach to do anything else, but really, Lucky saying that this young man was a real Olympic prospect and had a very bright future.
Nicholson's going to get the warning. Had the glove around the back of the head.
Larry Nicholson going to have to pick things up, too, in terms of his amateur career, should he decide to continue and possibly be an Olympian in '92 in Barcelona. He's 22 years old. Been fighting, as we mentioned, off and on for a very long time, although he really only started seriously 4 years ago, and showing a lot of good natural instincts for the game.
You're right. He's going to have to get on the horse to try and make it. If he's going to turn pro, he needs to do it fairly soon. That's something to take into consideration when you're watching these two fighters. There's a 5-year age differential. And if you're 23 versus 28, there's not that much difference. But when you're 22 versus 17, there's a big experience difference there. And Larry Nicholson showing that tonight.
Especially as we told you, Nicholson having been a national runner-up in '87, won a national championship a year ago. So once he picked it back up seriously, the rewards came very quickly.
Nice short right by Nicholson.
That leading right hand has been a very effective punch for Nicholson.
He's got a nice assortment of punches. He throws the right well. He's got a nice left uppercut. He's used that overhand right effectively.
And as we've mentioned several times, excellent counter punching once again. The right hand lead lands, has good vision while he's in there, able to dodge a lot of the punches as you see him duck under the left hook of Tony Marshall. Marshall has to be a little bit frustrated. Larry Nicholson hit very hard to hit.
And again, the nice left by Nicholson on the counterpunch. I think what you're seeing here is just experience prevailing. As round 3 is history, this fight's over. And we'll be back with more amateur boxing from the Palm Hotel down South Florida. Left and coming with the overhand right. It didn't take Nicholson long to answer. And there you see that big left to the body, another left to the head, and the right that lands to Marshall. And that's kind of the way things went throughout this fight. Our own Barry Milligan scored it in favor of Larry Nicholson. Let's go up and see if he was correct.
The national champion in the 132-pound class, Larry Nicholson. Nicholson.
And so Larry Nicholson, not surprisingly, wins the national championship in the 132-pound class. Tony Marshall, very disappointed, thought he indeed might have outboxed his more experienced fighter, but he will have his chances in coming years. Nicholson, 22 years of age, stands by with our own Barry Milligan.
Thank you, Dave. Larry Nicholson, a winner here at the PAL Championships. Larry, it looked like the counter-punching might have been the key for you, especially early.
Early part of the fight, it was the counterpunch. But then I got a little fatigued. I got hit with the low blows by 3 of them. I don't think the referee saw him. He saw one that he warned him for, but then it took its toll on my leg, so it made the fight kind of sluggish for me. But I think the counterpunching earlier in the fight, that's what got him.
Now, at 22, you're a 2-time national champion here in the PAL. What's in the future for you?
Well, I have to leave that up to my coach. But hoping I get to go to the Goodwill Games. If I do good at the Goodwill Games, if I make the Goodwill Games, I'm going to try for the Olympics. If not, I'm going to turn pro.
Right. Troop Texas has a 2-time national champion here, Larry Nicholson, a winner at West Palm Beach. We'll be back with more from the '89 PAL National Championships in just a moment.
As Ronald Wright out of St. Petersburg fighting in the red corner will take on Michael Smith out of Detroit, Michigan. A lot of Michigan fighters made it to the finals here in this '89 version of the PAL Championships. Ronald Wright in the yellow and blue trunks with the miniature boxing gloves on the side, and trying to figure out what those were there for a second. Mike Smith in the blue trunks. You know, the trunks are innovative when it takes you a second to describe them.
Ronald Wright, a left-hander, coming out, throwing a real stiff and a crisp right jab, keeping Michael Smith at bay. And you mentioned the Detroit fighters out of the River Rouge area outside of Detroit. You can credit the coach, Keith Jackson, for doing an outstanding job of keeping that program alive and bringing those kids south to face some great competition from other regions of the country.
Ronald Wright, 17 years old. It's only his second year as a fighter. Overall, a real good athlete. He obviously wants to go to the Olympics. Out of Gibbs High School up in St. Petersburg. Mike Smith, the former Golden Gloves novice champion. And as we told you, out of the Detroit, Michigan area. His third year as a fighter. So both these guys a little green in terms of amateur experience, but nonetheless, both fighting for a national championship here in the 139-pound class.
And we mentioned Mike Smith out of Detroit had to actually defeat his teammate in the semifinals to reach this championship match, beat Raymond Key in a decision. On the other hand, Ronald Wright out of St. Petersburg, decision J.J. Gonzalez out of Dallas, Texas, to reach the final.
David Studer, your third man in the ring. Look at exchange that Wright got the best of, and Wright throwing that right jab.
Ronald Wright being trained by Dan Birmingham, a veteran of the PAL wars with those young men. Trains Ronald in the Olympic program style and also the style used by the U.S. Army.
Right, the southpaw has just been very content to keep that right jab out in front of Mike Smith.
Pretty good counter punching there with the right hand. Ronald Wright has knockout power. A very strong young man. Has some national experience to his credit. Reached the semifinals of the National Golden Gloves competition.
Ronald Wright, a very strong boxer, does indeed have the knockout power. As we told you, very green. Had only 10 fights prior to this tournament as we come to the end of round one. Ronald Wright and Mike Smith from St. Petersburg and Detroit, respectively. 139-pound class of these national PALs. We told you this is the third year that the PAL has staged this tournament in Florida. Jacksonville, Pompano, and now Palm Beach, the sites, and the Bashir Shoemaker Sports Foundation, the folks that marketed this tournament, and have done just a magnificent job. And there's been some very, very entertaining fights throughout the week here. All these fighters came in Sunday evening, and as we told you, they've been here for the last 4 or 5 days.
There's Dan Birmingham in there talking to his youngster Ronald Wright, as we're going to see some of the action here as Smith trying to get Wright on the ropes and score with some of the infighting, landing in there well, but you see good head movement from Ronald Wright, coming back counter punching well and scoring some points of his own.
We move to round 2. And Ronald Wright. Mike Smith has been told to try and get inside a little more quickly, and that's obvious. Smith out of Highland Park High School up in Detroit, a junior.
And Ronald Wright, on the other hand, from Gibbs High School over in St. Petersburg, an outstanding athlete. Says he just wanted to box. Active in other sports, just 17 years old, and he's only been boxing a couple of years, but the way he looks in the ring really looks as if he has more experience than that. 21-3 thus far in his amateur career.
Well, he's done pretty well for a youngster. Seems to have some pretty good control. Takes a good right from Smith.
Says he's looking forward to the Olympics 3 years away in Barcelona. A lot of these young men have the goodwill games ahead of them, and as well as other international competition. The Russians will be coming to the United States, and as we told you, Pat Nappy, the ABF coach, in attendance tonight. Nappy having been the Olympic coach the last 3 times. The United States has fielded boxing teams looking at the young talent. Good left hand by Mike Smith.
And Wright just found himself off balance. Just the run of that left.
One thing Smith's going to have to try and do is keep that balance as well. As we told you, Wright with good power. If Smith finds himself off balance, Wright could easily knock him down. Although Smith being very aggressive here in round 2.
Well, you got to like the job that the National Police Athletic League does with these kids. You know, they bring them in, that some of these kids who might find other things less constructive to do or put in a constructive situation to learn about the values of life, and boy, you just can't put enough value on that. They've really done a fine job with these kids, and it's an organization that they should be proud of. And here comes a flurry from both fighters.
Yeah, Ronald Wright working the body, trying to lower the defenses of Mike Smith. Smith comes back pretty good right hand, a couple of good right hands.
Smith's doing a lot better job of getting inside that right jab of Ronald Wright here in the second round.
Smith with a good left, and now you see the defense of Ronald Wright lowered. He's dropping those hands a little bit. Looks to be the more tired of the two.
And so the tables turn just a little bit here in the second round, Bear, as Mike Smith looks to be a little more aggressive and a little more less winded. Actually, a little less winded, we should say, than his counterpart Ronald Wright. Let's listen in. And Mike Smith being given advice over in his corner. Ronald Wright, likewise, Dan Birmingham talking to him. Wright, we told you, has not been boxing long. The right jab seems to work effectively, but it doesn't have a very well-developed assortment of punches yet. Mike Smith, on the other hand, started off very slow, but was impressive here in the second round.
And there you see
third and final round of this 139-pound classification. Ronald Wright and Mike Smith. in the PAL competitions.
This is going to be a big round here, Dave. I think this third and final round will determine the national champion in the 139-pound weight classification. I felt that Ronald Wright was definitely the better of the two in round one, and Mike Smith came on hard in round number 2 to take that one. So unofficially, I have this one dead even.
Well, Wright moving around a little better than he did in the second round. Obviously, his corner telling him to throw that left jab, get on your bike, and score from the outside, and don't let Smith get inside on you.
Smith throwing the good uppercut. Takes a pretty good right hand. Now you see the hand speed of Ronald Wright starting to show itself here in round 3.
And we're going to get the warning. A point is going to be deducted from Ronald Wright before the headbutt, and that is a big point.
Oh, that's critical. That is a critical point deduction. Now, Smith comes on hard and lands another good left, but Ronald Wright has a tremendous obstacle to overcome now with that point deduction.
He's really got to win this round decisively now. Of course, you never know how the judges are going to score it. It seems to be a pretty even fight through the first 2 rounds, but, well, I'll tell you, you get a point taken away in a 3-round fight, you've got some problems. Although Ronald Wright doing a better job of keeping Smith off of him here in the 3rd round.
Wright looks to be the better of the two in terms of technique. However, getting another warning from the referee. So Mike Smith fighting the more intelligent fight of the two, perhaps. Counter-punching, picking his spots. He scored very well in round 2. But I think offensively, he's going to have to do a little bit more. He can't rely on that point deduction to win this national championship. He's going to have to come up with some offense of his own.
Well, Wright clearly getting the better of this 3rd round, although Smith gets a left in there. Smith really hasn't scored here in the 3rd stanza, and Wright has been on his bike throughout.
Well, he fought well in the first minute, but after that point deduction, he's just relaxed quite a bit. Ronald Wright has definitely been the more aggressive of the two. And I tell you, Dave, even with the point deduction, this 3rd and final round could very well be scored dead even. Yep. And that could really make the scoring interesting here to determine the national champion.
We will find out. This could be a very interesting decision when we return to Palm Beach to find out who the national champion in the 139-pound class is. 3rd round by sticking his head in there, and as a result, he's going to have a point taken away from him in what could have otherwise been a very good fight for Ron Wright. The scoring is going to be very interesting as this one, as you see Smith landing the right with a counterpunch. Let's go up and get the official word.
The national champion in the 139-pound class, from St. Petersburg, Florida, Ronald Wright.
Ronald Wright survives the point deduction. And the local favorite, at least from Florida, is your champion in the 139-pound class. And that right jab effective for the young man from the west coast of Florida. All right, Barry Milligan, let's go see what he has to say.
Thank you, Dave. Ronald Wright, a national champion. Ronald, you had to overcome that point deduction there in the 3rd round. That had to make the scoring very close.
Yeah, that's why I threw a lot of furs, you know, just to score points and not try to build up my points back.
Did you feel like, though, in the first 2 that you were ahead on points?
Yes, very much so. I was pulling them, I was punching them and everything. So I knew I was ahead.
All right, congratulations, Dave. Gibbs High School has a national champion in Ronald Wright. We'll be back with more from the 1989 PAL Championships in just a moment.
League 1989 Boxing Championships. We'll have John Coward out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, fighting out of the red corner, and Mark DiGiovanni out of Kearney, New Jersey, your fighter in the blue corner. This should be a pretty entertaining fight. It's our pleasure to welcome to the microphone face very familiar to amateur boxing here in Florida, Sergeant Pat Burns of the Miami Police boxing team. He's presently president of the Florida Gold Coast Boxing Association. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've seen a lot of young fighters in your time, and we're seeing another good crop of them here in this national championship.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with what I've seen so far. Particularly this match right here, both these guys are real fine fighters. I know a little bit more about John Coward, and we think John is a prospect for 92.
Coward comes off the ropes with a nice-looking shot right.
DiGiovanni with pretty good power of his own, as you see. A very strong upper body, good-looking legs. He stopped Glenn Major out of Fort Pierce last night in the first round of that bout.
He is very strong. I think Coward's going to need to box a little bit more, not try to slug with this kid.
We were talking about John Coward earlier, Pat, and you were talking about his relative inexperience. He's been boxing about 4 years. Very green coming in, but showing constant signs of improvement.
He started off a little slow, but he stuck with it, and he probably lost 4 or 5 of his first 10 bouts, and he just stuck with it, and he came back and he beat those same guys he lost to here in Florida, and he's just continually improving. Right now, I think he needs to box a little bit more and get his jab going. I'd like to say a quick word about his coach, Pete Balkunas. He's a police officer, and obviously we noticed he's a national PAL, and there's a lot of police officers here. And Pete has a club of about 15 boys. He does this on his own time after work, and his whole team is just really coming along. He also had a national champion in 1987. He's a former Marine. He's now with the reserves, Vietnam veteran, and we're just real proud of Pete Balkunas down here in Miami.
Mark DiGiovanni, at 20 years of age, has been boxing for about the last 6 years. He is a former member of the U.S. team that boxed in Sweden and in Denmark. So you've got a fairly experienced fighter here in Mark DiGiovanni against a little bit less experienced than John Coward. So far, pretty even fight here, as Coward really has not gotten the jab to work the way he'd like to.
Referee's getting on DiGiovanni a little bit. He's not turning his punches over. He's more of a slap. It looks like Coward is starting to get in the groove a little bit here now. He's snapping that jab a little better and staying away from that inside game of DiGiovanni's.
John Coward, a Florida Golden Gloves champion, and as we've been talking about, a lot of different ways to impress some of the people in the crowd. The people in Colorado Springs liked him, and that's one of the big places for the young amateurs to go and train and really get some national recognition.
We're real happy with our boxers here in Florida. We weren't even on the map a few years ago. We're just now starting to emerge as some of the stronger teams in the country.
As we come to the end of round 1. Pat will continue that for a second. Amateur boxing in Florida, you've got names like Coward and some of the other ones that we've seen here. Ron Wright, who won earlier today, and indeed boxing, at least amateur-wise, seems to be on the move here in the state.
Yes, we're really, really excited about some of our kids coming up. Matter of fact, the USA ABF rankings just came out, and one of our kids, Santana Lewis, made the All-American team, and his brother, Melvin Lewis, is ranked in the top 10 in the country. I think you guys worked that about the Ireland match. The Gray brothers, and then David Santos out of St. Petersburg. Just a lot of kids that are really coming up.
Okay. Well, certainly Florida's moving in the right direction, and certainly under the directions of guys like Pat Burns moving in there. This is the man we've been talking to. Pat, you've been coaching fighters for a lot of years, and now your new job now is President of the Florida Gold Coast Association.
Yeah, it is new to me, and but fortunately I have a great staff. Pete Balkunas, as a matter of fact, working the corner, is the vice president, and we got Juan Fuentes, another police officer, and Bobby Baker. Just a lot of police officers involved here in our state, and I really am very, very proud of what we've accomplished here. Nick Simonento, of course, is the president of the Florida Association. He's doing a great job here. It's unfortunate that the Florida Association and Florida Gold Coast have to box, and sometimes we leave 2 potential national champions at home. Coward's really starting to get that jab working now.
Seems to be getting a lot better, and Giovanni's hadn't got a bad left jab of his own. Doesn't move quite as well as Coward does. Seems to be very happy to just stand and punch with John. Coward, we were talking about earlier, a possible prospect of these 1992 Olympics if he can continue to improve in the way he has in the past year.
Well, I think what John really needs to do is just make up his mind that he's going to give it his best shot to make the 92 team and really focus for the next couple of years and not get distracted, stay in the gym, hang with the right people, just really stay on top of his mental game. There's that slap we were talking about.
Yep, second warning from the referee on that. And Pat, as you were talking before, maybe the only thing John Coward needs is the experience, possibly, you know, the experience of a DiGiovanni, getting that international flavor.
That's true. This is real good competition right here for John. He had a tougher bout earlier, but really around the state he's not getting this real tough competition, and this is the type of work that he needs to improve. I'd like to see him snap that jab like that there a little bit more in box. Giovanni wants to stand there, and John just keeps sticking and moving. I think he'll pull this off. Can't get lazy. He's got to really focus on what he's doing now. Giovanni's getting a little flat-footed.
How much does the international experience help a young fighter, say 14, 15, 16 years old, Pat?
Well, the 15 and 16-year-olds don't have the opportunity to box international. They have to be 17 years old on our senior team. However, this year, thanks to a man by the name of Bob Hodge, and of course, with the blessings from the President Billy Dove, our junior Olympic champions had the opportunity to box international and went to Ireland and defeated Ireland. So international competition, you can't beat it. You get over there, the judging, the scoring, is a little bit different than what they see here in the United States. I think we're much cleaner boxers, and a lot of the boxers around the country. And I think this international competition is really what they need to prepare themselves if they make it to the Olympics.
Mark DiGiovanni is scoring a little better here in round two, although Coward doing a pretty good job of staying away. Coward with the reach advantage, although it's a slight one.
And in terms of the scoring, you know, things are always different in international judging as well, as we saw from the Seoul Olympics.
And that's the end of round two.
You're correct on that. I think if you get the opportunity to talk to the President, Billy Dove, I think he can comment on that, what happened recently in Puerto Rico. We're having a difficult time, at least in my opinion, around the world. We have some boxers that definitely are winning their bouts, and it just seems like we're not getting the decisions. But it's a shame that happens, but I know there's a lot of talk about computer scoring and all this type of stuff. I'm not quite sure where that's going to go on an international.
Mark DiGiovanni being talked to with some fervor here in this corner, and apparently they're feeling that John Coward with the advantage here. Giovanni's going to have to get off his horse a little more.
Well, I think so as well, as you see Coward here just stalking DiGiovanni with the good left-right. Got the jab going and landed with a stiff right.
Coward just keeps doing what he's doing, using that jab, sticking and moving and working his angles. I think he should win this.
So we go to the third and final round. Along with Barry Milligan, I'm Dave Reed. Sergeant Pat Burns joining us here for this 147-pound class national championship. John Coward in the blue and Mark DiGiovanni in the red and white, or rather red and blue.
Some good body work in there, that exchange.
Well, obviously DiGiovanni being told he's going to have to get a little busier here in this third round.
Coward does not want to slug with this young man. He wants to try to box a little bit here. Stay out of trouble.
Coward, having defeated a couple of fellow Floridians on the way to this championship fight, beat George Kellman in the first round out of North Miami Beach. Defeated James Mason from Laurinburg, North Carolina in the quarterfinals, and then defeated Orlando's Vincent Harris in the semis.
Those were some tough boxers themselves. There's some good exchanges going in inside there. Coward needs to snap that jab and stay away from throwing that lead hook.
Giovanni off balance a little bit here. Coward makes him pay for it. Mark DiGiovanni, Kearney, New Jersey native. John Coward, as we told you, just right down the road in Fort Lauderdale.
This is a real credit to the Police Athletic League. A lot of these kids here get the chance to get off the streets and get into the gym and stay away from getting in trouble, and that's just a real credit to the police departments throughout the country that are involved in this.
Yeah, we were commenting on that earlier, what a great organization the PAL is, and you really can't measure the contribution they make to young kids at this age. It's hard to put a finger on it, but it is sizable.
That was a nice combination there by Coward. He's starting to get to him. You can see that head snap, and Coward's looking pretty sharp here. Just needs to stay away from them power punches by Giovanni.
Giovanni, as we told you before, is a state champ in his own right. In fact, this year he's the Golden Gloves champion, New Jersey style. This is his first experience in PAL competition.
He's putting up one heck of a bout here. He's a very strong young man.
Coward Warren, keep the elbow out of things.
In the pros, you can get away with that. In the amateurs, we try to make it as clean as we can, as you know. Nice combination.
That's the best combination of the fight right there.
Nice combination. Nice left hand, nice right hand. Coward's really starting to take it to him here now.
Yep. Getting that left out there, really making things work off the jab.
Three-punch combinations, really looking good here.
Hey, he's landed about the last dozen
I would
punches
not
in a row.
underestimate
Oh, that's a big right by Kearney. Nice right by Kearney.
It sure was.
Surrounded by Giovanni from Kearney.
Coward cannot underestimate this young man. He's still got the power to drop you. Heck of a match here. Heck of a match here.
And this fight is over with. Well, a very entertaining fight in the 147-pound division. We'll be back with a final word. The fight was landed by Mark DiGiovanni as he got John Coward with that big right there and got him with a left as well. That was the best flurry of the fight for DiGiovanni, but apparently the jab of John Coward was enough to possibly get him the championship here in this 147-pound division. Let's go up and see if we're right.
The national champion in the 147-pound class. In the red corner, John Coward.
Indeed, John Coward got the jab going. It started off a little bit slow, Pat, but some bright things coming up for this young man.
He's beat here now, and if he can get some more tough competition like that, he's going to go a long way.
All right, Pat, we very much appreciate you being with us, and let's go up to Barry Milligan for the very happy victor.
Thank you.
Well, John Coward, a national champion. John, it looked like the third round was perhaps your best round. Did it take you a couple to maybe warm up?
Yeah, my coach told me, and then when I got by the cone, he said, take my time. And by the third round, you'll be stronger than he is.
Hey, Billy.
By then, you know, guess it was just you. I'm so tired.
It looked like DiGiovanni was a very strong competitor, if nothing else. Didn't look like his punches were as crisp as yours, but perhaps just sheer strength-wise, he may have been a little stronger.
Yeah, my coach told me that he was strong, and he told me get out there and use my boxing skill, and that's what I did.
All right, John Coward, congratulations from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, a national champion in the Police Athletic League. And we'll be back with more from the 1989 PAL Championships in just a moment.
56-pound division. Dan Connolly out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Steve Harris, 16 years old and fighting out of Orlando, Florida, just up the road a little bit. Connolly in the red and blue trunks fighting out of the red corner. Steve Harris in the blue and white in the blue corner. And let us take the opportunity to welcome Billy Dove, who is the president of the U.S. Amateur Boxing Federation. Billy, appreciate you taking time to come and be with us on this fight.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
This has been a very fine tournament so far, very well run.
Yeah, so this is my first PAL championship, and it has been very interesting. I've seen a lot of these youngsters that show a lot of promise for us in the next 2 or 3 years.
You've been around the country watching amateur fights off and on. How many fights do you get a chance to see in a given year?
Oh, golly, I don't know. I don't count anymore. There's so many of them, but I try to get out any place that I can where these young kids are boxing so I can take a look at them.
All right, well, Dan Connolly now taking on Steve Harris. Connolly out of Pittsburgh. Steve Harris lost his very first fight, but has been in some title fights before. Steve's 16 years old. He's got an 18-1 record. He's only been fighting for about 18 months now. So got started a little bit late and is going to have to mature quickly.
Connolly fighting out of the Western Pennsylvania Police Athletic League. Club defeated one of our local fighters, if you will, Artis Pendergrass, in the semifinals, decisioning the young man from Fort Lauderdale.
Gets a nice left hand in there. Billy, where do you see amateur boxing going on right now? Pat Burns and I were talking in the previous or earlier today about how Florida fighters now are starting to come on a little bit more in amateur boxing. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think it's our boxing is not getting so much centralized as it used to be in the past. Certain areas of the country is all your good boxers. Like in the East in Detroit used to be a boxing bed. New York. And I think now you'll find that it's being spread throughout the whole country now. We've got good boxers coming from everywhere.
You've got one in the ring there, and Steve Harris. He's a former Florida Golden Gloves champ in his own right. Won the Junior Olympics title in Davenport, Iowa last year. Fought with Team USA against Ireland, a match that Barry Milligan and I did last year.
Connolly, very good hand speed. Fought with the USA ABF team on the Scandinavian tour they went on this past March when they toured Norway and Denmark. So the young man from Pennsylvania, a state Golden Gloves champ in his own right, has some international experience as well.
Involved in fight some years ago. Stuck with it.
Well, that's one thing we've tried to do this past year. We're going to continue in this year is to get as many of our young boxers as possible in international competitions. And we haven't had too many of them to repeat more than once or twice in fighting these foreign teams, because the more we can get the experience for, the better off and the better chances we're going to have when it comes to the 92 Olympic Games.
Indeed, Pat Nappy on hand with us here this evening. As we had indicated, he'll be joining us a little bit later, we hope. The coach of the U.S. Olympic team in years past, and probably the premier amateur boxing authority, maybe next to the gentleman sitting here to my right, in the country.
No, Pat is the authority. There's no one better. No one better.
I had to give you the opportunity to stand up here, so
well, it's okay, but we couldn't do without him. He just knows all of the boxers, nationally, internationally, the whole works.
Harris warned about wrapping the hand around the head.
I tell you, Dave, Billy, these two guys really trading some leather here in the first round.
And that's hard. The end of round one. Bill, let's talk about the future of some of these fighters. How many of these kids are actually, first of all, going to get the opportunity to fight an international competition, do you think?
Most of them will eventually get an opportunity to fight an international match. We have a 90 schedule that's out of this world, and I'm sorry I didn't bring a copy with me, but we have a lot of international competition coming up in 1990, and we expect to have as many different boxers as we can get for each competition. The same boxers will not repeat if we can avoid it.
Let me back up here and introduce Billy Dove to all you folks out there. He's the man you've been hearing from here the last round. Billy, we talked about the international aspect of it. In terms of the Olympics, you know, very few are going to actually get the opportunity to fight in Seoul, but many will be offered the opportunity to participate in the Olympic trials and in Olympic training camps.
Yes, that's very true, and that's one thing good about our process of elimination to select our boxing team for the Olympic Games is that a lot of youngsters get the opportunity not just to select few like the foreign countries have.
All right, we move to round two. Steve Harris looking to get to the Olympic trials, as is his counterpart Dan Connolly. First round pretty even, Bear, although I think you had to give Harris a little bit of an edge.
I think so. You know, he's doing a little bit better with that left jab. That had been his suspect punch coming into this fight. He really likes the right hand, but you're going to have to do something to set it up, and he needs to work on that jab, and it looks like he's been doing just that. Now Harris landing good lefts and rights, and he's going to be warned to keep the head up.
Got a nice 1-2 left-right in there, right on the button of Dan Connolly.
Both these young men considered very real prospects for Barcelona in 1992.
And Harris got a little bit of blood coming from the nose now. Billy, we were talking about earlier these amateur fighters primarily concentrating on the offensive style, but the defense comes later.
Yes, youngsters, that's primarily what they do. They like to go out and throw and don't worry too much about getting hit. But they both have a part of the game, and as they gain experience, then they're going to learn to be a little more defensive as well as their offensive skills.
In experience-wise, in the fights that you have seen, as you can see Harris's nose being bloodied fairly severely, and they'll stop this right now to wipe it off. The third man in the ring, Gene Reese out of Tennessee. We'll take a look at that nose, and we'll have the doctor take a look at it as well. We've seen a couple of noses taking some beatings here.
Yes. You know, and just in about being stopped there, it's something I'd like to mention is that these doctors are unsung heroes in boxing and amateur boxing, because we don't have a bout without them. And they devote their time and their skills to come to these bouts and stay at ringside so that these young kids that are entering are able to box, because without them, you must have a doctor here to box, and they're a godsend to our program. We wish we could get more of them involved.
Told to quit slapping.
Yep, that's the second warning for Connolly, hitting with the open fist. As we told you, the white on the gloves, the contact area, you have to make contact with that white part of the boxing glove to score points.
Hey, Harris is doing a good job of counterpunching and scoring on the inside exchanges that you really don't see. Got a couple of good rights in the last one.
I think you'll find that's probably the biggest fault that our young boxers have, and when, particularly a starting boxer, and that they have a tendency to slap rather than punch straight like they should.
A couple of good lefts from Dan Connolly.
Connolly's starting to come on now as he drives Harris back into the ropes.
Talking about the unsung heroes, a couple of more of those. The Bashore Shoemaker Sports Foundation staging this great event the third year in a row. The event has been in Florida, moving from Jacksonville in '87 to Pompano Beach last year, and now here this year. Don Bashore and company doing a great job here in West Palm Beach.
Yes, the PAL people here have done a great job in putting on this competition. I only wish that I could have been down here to see it all.
Week-long tournament, we told you earlier, round 2 is history. And so Steve Harris, looking to get to the Olympics with an 18-1 record. You see him there.
And that's his dad, Lucius. Lucius said things went kind of in reverse order. Usually the dad will get the son interested in boxing. It was Steve Harris that wanted to box and got his dad involved, so Lucius has become his coach.
You know, that's great when the family can get all involved with their young boxer, too.
Some heavy leather being thrown in round 2 as well. This at 156 is when you really get the combination of strength and speed, and you see some real strength right there. The best punch of the combination being landed out. Great left hand by Steve Harris.
And Harris did a good job of counterpunching. He's really done a fine job here. Got to keep that head out of it, keep that nose protected. But
yes. And they've landed a lot of strong blows, these two.
All right, we move to the third and final round. Steve Harris in the blue and the white. Dan Connolly in the blue and the red. 156-pounders fighting for a national championship.
Boy, this really a tough fight to score. A good left, yep. Connolly went with the right cross to the body, came up and landed a strong left to the head. Connolly's coach, Jimmy Savetic, out of the Western Pennsylvania PAL club, says this kid has a winning attitude. Been boxing since he was 12 years old. 7 years now as Connolly in the red shirt, Steve Harris in the white. Harris being warned for holding there, but Connolly with about 50 amateur fights to his credit, showing some good power and a pretty good left jab.
Harris is going to have to learn to keep those hands up a little bit better than he has been. He's really got him down low, almost begging for a left jab to come in there and connect, which is exactly what has happened.
But now we've seen once again, look where he carries his left. We said his jab was suspect. He's carrying that left awfully low.
I think you'll notice in a lot of your inexperienced boxers have a tendency not only to carry them low, but to drop them. Once they get them up, then they'll drop them down when they throw a punch, and it creates a lot of problems for them.
I think it'll drive a coach crazy.
Oh, amen. I'll tell you, they're evenly matched.
Yeah, they really are. This is going to be a tough fight to score.
Yes, it is.
Very tough fight to score. Steve Harris defeated Jeff Austin and Jean-Claude Hudson, both out of the Miami Beach area. And then last night beat Albert Corr out of Troy, New York in the semifinals to get here. And we told you the route that Dan Connolly took. So this is the fourth fight of the week for both of these fighters. And by the time the week's out, they will have boxed 12 rounds or thereabouts.
Once again, you see the blood coming from the nose of Steve Harris himself, a very well-developed young man. He's only 16 years old. Goes to Lyman High School over in Altamont Springs. And really, when you consider the fact that he is just 16, you can see what a great future he may have.
Yes, indeed. He's well-versed in the skills of boxing for such a young age.
Both these young men are. Dan Connolly, about the same age as Steve Harris, and they both got very sound fundamentals.
I'll tell you what, the national champion may be decided in the last minute or so of this round. The two have been very, very evenly matched.
You know, Harris, being 16, cannot box internationally until he's 17.
Right.
He's got a year of seasoning ahead of him, then,
Yes,
or
he
something.
does.
It'd be a welcome.
Even more impressive, the fact that we mentioned Connolly has already had some international competition.
All right, well, that's the end of this fight, and this is going to be a very tough one to score. We'll be back
Interesting.
to get the final word. Dan Connolly and Steve Harris back in a moment. The fortunes of the local favorite, Steve Harris, with a couple of quick hands against the ropes here. That's how you pile up a few points. But Dan Connolly doing a pretty good job of blocking the force of Harris's blows. So that's kind of the way this fight's gone throughout. Let's go up to the ring and get the official word.
The winner and national champion in tonight's 8th bout in the 156-pound weight class, from the red corner, Dan Connolly.
You gonna present the gold? You gonna present the gold?
Indeed, it is Dan Connolly, who is the champion in the 156-pound class out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A very happy young man. Billy Dove, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and continued success.
Thank you so much. I was glad to be here.
Boxers in this tournament will get set to go at it in the 165-pound classification. Frank Savannah in the red corner, fighting out of Brickton, New Jersey, and Antonio Tarver in the blue out of Orlando. Tarver only 16 years old, but Tarver has been fighting quite a while. Two-time Sunshine State Games champion, 3 Junior Olympics, and Frank Savannah presently ranked 5th in the United States among the amateur ranks. Very great pleasure to welcome Pat Nappy to the microphone. Pat, of course, our Olympic coach for 3 years, and now getting ready to prepare a team to fight the Russians in Seattle and then Atlanta. Pat, appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Well, I really am glad being here and watching this show, because we have a lot of good-looking potential here.
We were talking earlier as we watched these two guys get warmed up about the possibility of some of these fighters moving on to the Olympic training camps. And from what you've seen so far this week, how many of these fighters are going to have that opportunity, do you think?
Well, for the next camp, no, they've already been selected, but we will have them in mind for the future camps. And I'd say quite a few of them will be out there.
These two young men may indeed have some of the best chances of any of them. As we told you, each of them have a number of championships under their belt. Savannah, the 1987 and 1988 National AAU champion in this division. And Antonio Carver, a Florida Junior Olympics champion, as we told you, 3-time Junior Olympic and Sunshine State Game champion. He's 50-3 as an amateur. Carver in the red and white, and Frank Savannah in the solid black and red. And I think you've seen right off the bat that these two fighters have a great deal of respect for each other.
Well, it's a pretty good jab from Carver in the red trunks. He has switched to southpaw. They're switched in style. He is a natural right-hander, but has switched to the left-handed stance, leading with that right hand, and the experience may be the difference in this.
Pat, you've been around the boxing game for some time now, but what do you see today as the biggest difference between our fighters today and the fighters, say, 10, 12 years ago, the young fighters?
Oh, I don't see much difference at all, except that the styles have changed to some extent. But really, there hasn't been that much change that there should be any difference. I think the kids today, those that have the desire, are as good, or maybe sometimes even better than the boxers in the past.
You're starting to see some more balance, I think, in the international competitions than you have in the past. Traditionally, U.S., Cuba have been powerhouses, but now a lot of folks a lot of different countries are putting good boxers together.
Yes, they definitely are. We just come back from the World Games in Russia, and
Antonio Carver right now, if I can interrupt you, Pat, gets a big left hand in there. It might have been enough for a standing 8 count, but they'll let it go.
Here's another one.
Another big left, and another left by Carver. And they're letting it all hang out right in the middle of the ring. And Frank Savannah warned to keep the head up. And another short left by Carver, Pat.
Right, 3 in a row now.
And that's the end of the first round. We move to round 2. Antonio Carver, red and white, and Frank Savannah in the black.
That was a situation, Dave, I felt in round 1 where Savannah may have been the stronger of the two for the first couple of minutes, and then Carver had a big 3rd minute and probably took that round based on outstanding left hands and good combinations in the last minute of that round.
Yes, I would say so.
He comes out beginning here in the 2nd round, too, with another good left. Now, here comes Savannah, the more experienced of the two. He's throwing some heavy punches here as he's got Tarver backed up on the ropes. I don't think that's where Antonio wants to be.
Needs to get those hands up a little bit more. Savannah getting in there with some regularity. This is Tarver's first chance, really, at a national championship.
Well, and remember, we told you, he's a converted southpaw. He's been leading with those left hands, and they've been really scoring. Now he's coming back with the right hand lead. I think that has Savannah confused.
He's getting home pretty good with that left hand, I'll tell you.
It really is. We were talking to Billy Dove earlier, Pat, about the migration of talent all around the country. It used to be there are some hotbeds around the country for amateur boxing, but now you're seeing boxers grown on a more universal basis around the nation.
Definitely, yes. Yes, you do. And I think that's makes it all the better because it gives the kids a lot more exposure.
And it certainly helps the competitive aspect of it as well. You're going to be preparing the team for the Russians here next, and of course the '92 Olympics are going to be coming up sooner than most of us realize. Where do you see the powerhouses coming outside of the United States in coming years?
Well, right now I would say, for an example, Russia, Cuba, East Germany. I would say all those Iron Curtain countries will be in there.
You're finding that most of the time the fighters in those countries, as you see Savannah, getting a couple of nice body shots in there, and Carver told, hit him with the gloves and not with the arms.
Tarver breathing a little bit more heavily here later in the round. Frank Savannah has had good success going to the body as he traps Tarver up on the ropes. He's going to get a warning now there from throwing the open glove.
Pat, the stigma surrounding the Iron Curtain countries traditionally has been that these fighters from those countries have the tendency to stand in front of you and just go straight at you. Is that true as much today as it was in past years?
No, not at all. In fact, they have copied our style completely. They now are really and truly boxers and not stand-up straight fighters anymore. They box both ways now.
And round 2, an entertaining round 2, comes to a close. Antonio Tarver at 16 years of age, Frank Savannah at age 20. Savannah, who works for his father as an electrician at Savannah Electric. You see him there, may have come on in the 2nd round, and this fight, as we stand right now, is pretty doggone close.
I think it's dead even. I thought Savannah really came on there and had a very strong 2nd round.
Savannah's also switching, if you see, watch him closely. He's also switching from left to right.
And let's say hi to Pat Nappy. Pat, if you look right over here, face, if you follow boxing, it's got to be very familiar to you. One who has seen his share of international competition in his time and has done a great job for this country in the Olympics. We're glad to have you here, Pat.
Oh, my pleasure, believe me. I'm glad to be here.
We've seen some great young fighters tonight, and potentially in the ring right now, 2 future Olympians. So let's move to round 3. Savannah in the black, Tarver in the red and white. And this round will determine this national champion in the 165 category. I think you can look for it all to hang out here.
I think, Pat, too, in comparing ourselves with some of the Eastern Bloc countries, it's become so important to have a place like Colorado Springs, a national training facility where we can take these young guys and develop them the way the Eastern Europeans do.
Yes, we've also started something new where we're using more and more boxers and giving them a lot more international experience. In other words, we're not using the same boxer. We're giving everybody a shot at international, and we hope to develop that way. And also using more and more coaches.
One of Antonio Tarver's losses was to a former disciple of yours, Pat, one Roy Jones, that he lost to back in 1981 at the Sunshine State Games. Roy Jones, of course, making headlines in Seoul, not of his own doing. So far, this third round is as tough to score as the first 2.
Oh, good uppercut from Frank Savannah. The 2 are trading punches. Savannah definitely getting the better of the 2 in that big exchange. Here is where the experience may pay off.
Well, also it's going to see who's in a better shape.
Carver lunging wildly a couple of times.
Slap.
I'm warned about that.
Unfortunate setup by the good jab, but it landed with the open fist, and that will not count in terms of the point scoring.
These 2 guys very evenly matched.
Yes, it's really a real good match.
Several of the weight classifications tonight, we've seen some outstanding matchups. Just goes to show you.
Oh, big right uppercut by Savannah, and that stuns Tarver. And Tarver's hurt.
Yeah, he hurt him.
That might have been enough for a standing 8, but they're going to let it go on.
Another good right on the ropes, but Antonio Tarver really fighting back. He's got to get himself off the ropes there.
Couple of good lefts by Tarver. Well, if you wanted action, you got it now, folks. That was a big right uppercut by Frank Savannah. That was the best punch of the fight.
And now, Pat, we see him once again coming back with that straight left, something he didn't do very much of in the second round.
What are you looking for overall in terms of general characteristics of a fighter nowadays, Pat? You're looking for a fighter who's quick, a fighter who's got heart, a fighter who can punch, all of the above? Or?
Well, we hope that he has all them qualities rolled up into one.
All right, Pat. Stay with us for a second. That's the end of round 3. We'll go up to get what should be a very interesting decision in a moment. This is Frank Savannah, and he's going to set himself, and here's that big right uppercut we were telling you about. Boom, right on the button.
Hit the button, too.
Right on the money, and it staggered Antonio Tarver. Let's see if that's enough for him to win this fight with.
The winner and national champion in the closest bout of the evening in the 165-pound class, the winner from the red corner, Frank Savannah.
Well, you can tell an absolutely elated Frank Savannah, Pat Nappy, and that uppercut might have been enough to turn the tide.
I think that the experience went over there a little bit more than anything else.
So Frank Savannah, the 1987 National AAU champion and the repeat champion in 1988, gets yet a third national championship, this PAL style, as Frank Savannah at age 20, looking awfully good in his quest for the Olympics. All right, let's go up to the ring and our own Barry Milligan.
Frank Savannah, the national champion at 165 pounds. Frank, I think you know you've been in a fight there, huh?
Oh, yeah, I definitely was. It was, this was as hard as last year. Last year I had 4 fights in 2 days, and this was rougher than even that last bout after all that work in 2 days. I mean, it's just really totally exhausting. I knew he was very fast. I saw him yesterday, I mean, when he started throwing punches, he just did not stop against that guy. So I knew how to stay on the outside. I knew how to work the body. I knew he had a tendency to not like the body. He backed up. And I just knew that I had to work the body and try to go down as hard as I could. Finally, I started thinking in the third round, I wish I would have done a little sooner, was that uppercut. I wish I would have just done it a little sooner, you know? Like maybe in the first round.
Looked like both you guys were switching up styles a little bit, going with the southpaw and trying to confuse each other.
Yeah, that seemed to work really well, turning up southpaw. I hit him some good shots, you know. I mean, he caught me coming in a couple times, but I thought I did really good switching up. I've been practicing on it in the gym.
All right, congratulations. Frank Savannah takes a national championship back to Brickton, New Jersey from the '89 PAL Championships. We'll be back with more from West Palm Beach in just a moment. £65, Frank. I think you know you've been in a fight there, huh?
Oh yeah, I definitely was. It was. This was as hard as last year. Last year I had 4 fights in 2 days, and this was rougher than even that last bout. After all that work in 2 days, I mean, it's just really totally exhausting. I knew he was very fast. I saw him yesterday. I mean, when he started throwing punches, he just did not stop against that guy. So I knew how to stay on the outside. I knew how to work the body. I knew he had a tendency to not like the body. He backed up. And I just knew that I had to work the body and try to go down as hard as I could. Finally, I started thinking in the third round, I wish I would have done a little sooner, was that uppercut. I wish I would have just done it a little sooner, you know? Like maybe in the first round.
Looked like both you guys were switching up styles a little bit, going with the southpaw and trying to confuse each other.
Yeah, that seemed to work really well, turning up southpaw. I hit him some good shots, you know. I mean, he caught me coming in a couple times, but I thought I did really good switching up. I've been practicing on it in the gym.
All right, congratulations. Frank Savannah takes a national championship back to Brickton, New Jersey from the '89 PAL Championships. We'll be back with more from West Palm Beach in just a moment.